And we're back for episode 3 of the Madden Report. I'm your host, James Madden, joined alongside my co-host, Coach Madden. Coach, we had the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 over this past weekend. How you feeling after that?
James, it was a very good weekend of basketball. There were 8 good games. So leading into this weekend, I think last weekend might have been the best weekend of basketball so far.
And I agree, we saw some great games. We saw a couple blowouts in the Elite 8. The Elite 8 wasn't really the same type of energy and same type of quality basketball as we saw in the Sweet 16. The Sweet 16, there were a couple of nail biters. But without further ado, we'll jump right into the next round, the Sweet 16 game. First game we'll be talking about is Gonzaga Arkansas, a game where I said last week Arkansas kind of poses a threat to Gonzaga when it goes based off Arkansas's athleticism, but Arkansas was able to pull away with the victory, 74-68. What are your thoughts on that one?
I just think that Eric Musselman did a very good job with the bigs for Gonzaga and kept the guard play in check. In the end, I think Arkansas was just a little bit too athletic for them.
And I agree. J.D. Notae, he always gets all the praise because it's always the point scorers and the guards who really get all the attention after a big win. But the player who I thought was the player of the game and I thought had one of the most impressive performances of any player in the tournament was Jaylen Williams. Jaylen Williams was able to limit Drew Timme's production in the first half as well as keep Chet Holmgren off the floor in foul trouble. Holmgren eventually fouled out with maybe 7-8 minutes left. So Jalen Williams, in my eyes, was the unsung player of the game for Arkansas. And J.D. Notae, he had a bit of a he struggled a bit from the field. He shot 20% or so. He shoots the ball quite frequently. He's not afraid to throw up a shot. But nonetheless, Arkansas was able to overwhelm Gonzaga with their terrific guard play and their athleticism and pull off the victory. So next game we got is a game that I said going into the Sweet 16 was my personal favorite, and it certainly lived up to the expectations of many around the country, was Texas Tech Duke. Duke is in Coach K's final run, one last run with Coach K. He's retiring after this season. Texas Tech's a team that, they know how to win. They're gritty, they play fast, and they're not afraid to go down low, put a body on someone. And, Duke did pull away the 5-point win. What do you think? This
was one of the best games of the weekend. This was actually my favorite game of the weekend, just the sheer fact that it was up and down. They play similar. The game was up and down to the point where it was similar to what we do here at Abington a little bit. The Coach K got it done for Texas Tech, but Texas Tech wouldn't let the game be stretched out. And in the end, it's Coach K's last year, and the kids are absolutely playing for them. Coach K admitted that he had to go zone in the middle of that game. I think it was just into the second half he had to go zone, but the kids, they made him go back man because man typically is a pride thing, and they have a lot of pride for Coach K.
And yeah, I'm with you on this one. This was, in my opinion, the best game of the weekend and probably the entire tournament. This is a Texas Tech team I've been high on. I said back in January this team has what it takes to make the Final Four. Evidently, they're not in the Final Four, but when it came down to this game, I said, whichever team wins this, I think could win the tournament. And, they both showed it. Texas Tech is an incredible team. Mark Adams in his first year with the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and he did a great job. A team that was picked to finish 8th in the Big 12 really turned around ship and finished 3rd. So Texas Tech, the name of their game was defense and hustling and being gritty. And like I said, they played games against teams like Kansas State, and it wouldn't be pretty, but it showed that they know how to win. And frankly, I thought Texas Tech was going to beat Duke, but Duke definitely has more talent. They have numerous amount of 5-stars, and like I said, Coach K's final year, so definitely don't want it to end there. And Duke was able to pull off the victory, and Duke is a team. We'll get to the Final Four later on, but Duke's a team a lot of people could have winning it all, but nonetheless, Duke into the Elite Eight. And next up, we have the Elite Eight matchup, a matchup that was a bit surprising. A lot of people had Gonzaga Duke, the kind of the conventional matchup, but we saw Arkansas pull off the little upset over Gonzaga. So we had Arkansas Duke. Duke won by 9, 78-69, into the Final Four, going to New Orleans. But what do you think about that one?
Duke, I thought, was the better team. I like Eric Musselman, but their ride kind of came to an end, and Duke was able just to out-physical him for the full 80 minutes.
Yeah, and I agree. Duke was, really controlled the game from the jump. It's just, like I said earlier about Jalen Williams, I think that big men don't get as much praise as they should, and Mark Williams was terrific in that game. And so was Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams has done a terrific job for Eric Musselman all year. He's kind of been their quiet superstar. You know, like I said, their guards get all the praise, but Jalen Williams really holds the ship together, and as they struggled during the season, Jalen Williams was he was like old reliable for Arkansas. He was able to, you know, if they needed scoring, if they needed rebounding, defense, they would turn to him, and that's what he did all great for Eric Musselman all season. But Mark Williams was just tremendous. He was able to do everything for Duke, and that's really what he's done all season. Mark Williams was a highly touted prospect, just like every Duke player coming out of high school. He's a 5-star. But what he does around the rim is, you know, just different. Not many players in the country can defend the rim like he can. Not many players rebound like he can. But Mark Williams, you know, like I said, is probably Duke's most important player. Him and another guy I've been real big on this year is A.J. Griffin, who I think he's been starting to been getting the respect he deserves. But I think, you know, guys like Ben Caro, Roach, they all steal the spotlight when, you know, Griffin and Mark Williams really hold the ship together. But without further ado, we'll move over to the South region. That was over in San Antonio. We have a Sweet 16 matchup. Number 1 Arizona, who was upset by number 5 Houston, a team that always seems to find a way to win in March. Kelvin Sampson's squad. So Houston was able to pull off the 12-point victory, 72-60. What do you think?
You know, Houston, I think they were the better team in the end. They're bigger, they were stronger, the guard play was a little bit better. So I just thought that, you know, was the way it was going to end, and it did.
Yeah, in Houston, like I said, they always find a way to win in March. You know, they were playing without 2 starters, Tremont Mark and Marcus Sasser, both sidelined for the year. But like I said, Kelvin Sampson, he, you know, where there's a will, there's a way, and he lives to that. Kelvin Sampson, in my opinion, easily maybe a top 5 coach, maybe even top 3. Every year, you know, he finds a way. You know, people say the American Athletic is a, you know, weak conference, and it is, but Kelvin Sampson really shows, you know, we're here to play in March, and he did that this year, going all the way to the Elite 8. Last year he went to the Final Four. But their team, you know, it was Jamal Shed. Jamal Shed was terrific that night. He had 23, I believe. And like you said, their big men play is easily up there with the best in the country. Arizona was a team that was known for their big men play. Christian Coloco, you had, as well as Tabella, Dalen Terry, all down low. But, you know, Josh Carlton, who transferred in from UConn. You had Fabian White, Jr., who also has been there. I believe he's a senior this year. So they kind of showed, you know, we're the better big men. We take pride in being, you know, some of the best big men core in the country. And they really took that to heart and showed, you know, they were here to play. They were the better team and came out with the victory. And we have the second Sweet 16 matchup of the South Regional. We had a game that was a bit up and down. I think it was kind of in Villanova's favor for the majority of it. But we have 11 Michigan, a bit of a Cinderella run for them, and number 2 Villanova.
Well, at the beginning, a lot of people didn't think that Michigan should have even been in the tournament. But they got in, and they made a nice little run, but all runs come to an end. Villanova, I think, is one of the most balanced teams in the country. They got their size, they got the great guard play, and I just think that they were just too much for Michigan to overcome.
Exactly, and Villanova is just one of those teams that it's hard to pick against them because they, every year in, year out, Jay Wright and his squad, they always have what it takes to win in March. They have great guard play, great big men play, tons of experience, and they play well as a team. And there's not many teams, you know, that have that every year, and Villanova does. You know, Jay Wright, a Hall of Fame coach, for a reason. And, you know, Villanova has one of, if not the best backcourts in the country with Justin Moore, Caleb Daniels, and Colin Gillespie. We'll get to Justin Moore when we talk about the Elite 8 game. But someone who really kind of has got on a hot streak is local kid. He played at Franklin High School. Excuse me, where did he play? The River School over in Weston. Jermaine Samuels played in Boston for AU with BABC. So he's a local kid that, you know, showing Boston is a basketball city. But Villanova was able to come away with the 8-point victory over a Michigan team that, you know, gained a lot of confidence as the tournament's gone on, but Villanova into the Elite 8. Next up, we got Houston-Villanova. Villanova into the Final Four as well. Villanova was able to come out with a 6-point victory over Houston. Bit of a defensive game like everyone imagined, but what do you think?
Again, you know, Houston just didn't have enough they had a very nice run this year. The coaching got them through this a little bit. But like I said, Villanova and Jay Wright is just fantastic in the way he handles each and every situation that gets thrown at him. Calms the kids down when things aren't going great. And I just think that, like I said earlier, Villanova is just one of the most balanced teams in the country.
Yeah, and like I said, Villanova every year seems to be in the mix. Even when they're a lower seed, maybe a 6th seed, they're always in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and that's the same case this year. Villanova, like you said, probably one of, if not the best coach team in the country. And I said we'll get to Justin Moore. Justin Moore, their starting shooting guard, their leading scorer, actually got injured in the second half of this game. He's sidelined for the remainder of the tournament. He suffered a torn Achilles, so that's going to be a big blow to Villanova. But Jay Wright said, obviously, he's a big player to us. He's a big player to our program, but that injuries happen. It's just next man up. So it'll be interesting to see, who they have at the starting shooting guard, whether it's young kid, Brian Antoine, who's only a sophomore, Trey Patterson, who's a freshman. So it'll be interesting to see. We have going into the East bracket, number 8, North Carolina, number 4, UCLA. The North Carolina magical run continues. They beat UCLA. What do you think?
North Carolina just gets up and down, and the UCLA was able to play some solid defense on North Carolina, but they just they like to put points up, and they kind of figure out when they have to. UCLA, I thought, had a nice 2-year run here, but I'm not surprised that North Carolina was able to take care of business.
And yeah, that's a North Carolina team that was really, high. People were high on them going into the season. They have the talent necessary to win, and they have the guard play. Their guard play has been terrific. R.J. Davis and Caleb Love. Caleb Love had around 30 in that game, so Caleb Love, he was terrific. It's really been one or the other. R.J. Davis was great the first 2 games. Caleb Love really stepped up. 2 young sophomores that were highly touted prospects coming out of high school. But everyone's been talking about him, but I'm going to talk about him, has been Armando Bacot. He averaged a double-double in the East Regional in all 4 games for North Carolina, and there's not many players like him that can go out there, get 15 points, 15 rebounds, and that's really been the reason that North Carolina's gone so far, and that's what happened. Next up, we got Purdue and St. Peter's. St. Peter's run continues. They beat Purdue, pulled off another upset, 67-64. What do you think?
St. Peter's, I like them. I think they were a little bit underplayed on how good they actually are. Purdue, I believe, was number 1 at one point in the year, at least in the top 5. They're typical Big Ten program, but St. Peter's, I think, especially with the coach, old Seton Hall guy, Big East guy. I think he has his guys playing. They were able to squeak out that one to a middle of the road Big Ten team.
Yeah, and St. Peter's, like I said, their run continued. 15 seed, the first 15 seed ever make the Elite Eight, and they really like you said last week, St. Peter's hangs around and really throughout the beginning, and Purdue really gives them a chance, gives them hope that they could put the nail in the coffin, and that's what they did. It was a close game throughout. St. Peter's, would get up to a 5-point lead. Purdue would bring it back, and Purdue would do the same, get out to a 5-point lead. But they kept it close and came down to the buzzer. Jaden Ivey got a good look late at the buzzer for Purdue, but it didn't fall, and St. Peter's went into the Elite Eight to face North Carolina. And, we have our East Regional Elite Eight matchup. We got North Carolina versus St. Peter's, your unconventional 8 versus 15 matchup in the March Madness. But North Carolina they kind of controlled it throughout, won by 20, 69-49. What do you think?
All Cinderella runs typically come to an end to a Power 10, Power 5 program. St. Peter's, I just think they ran out of gas, and they're not used to playing at that high level that many nights in a row. I just think that North Carolina system, getting up and down, just kind of wore them out, and that was the end result. And North Carolina took care of business.
Yeah, and like you said, all Cinderella stories normally come to an end, and that's what happened. St. Peter's, it was a great run, but not many people can say they played at St. Peter's and made the Elite Eight. So, what Shaheen Holloway did with their team is terrific. And, actually last night, we're filming this on Thursday, but Wednesday night, he announced that he's going to Seton Hall like everyone expected. He played at Seton Hall, coached there for 9 years. So, North Carolina, they're a good team. Like I said, it's not often a first-year coach can get his players to play for him like Hubert Davis does, but that's the strength of really hiring within the program, and Hubert Davis was an assistant there. He played at North Carolina. So, that's really what happens when you hire a coach that's been with the program, and that's, what they're going to get. Hubert Davis has done a great job in his first year, and North Carolina's into the Final Four to play Duke. Battle of Tobacco Road, Part 3. But we move into our final region, the Midwest region. We have a Sweet 16 matchup between Kansas and Providence, a game that Kansas controlled, but Providence made a late run and only lost by 5, but Kansas pulled off the victory 66-61.
Yeah, as you said, James, Providence got down early. Ed Cooley was able to calm things down, and they made a run at it. But Kansas just, they're very similar to my thoughts on Villanova. They have guard play, they have size, they're fairly well balanced, and they're extremely well coached with Bill Self. So I'm not surprised that Kansas was able to win by 5.
Yeah, and Kansas, a terrific team, a 1 seed for a reason, and a lot of people, doubted them coming into the tournament, saying it's not the same Bill Self team that, he's had in the past. But Bill Self, him and his boys, they showed we're 1 seed for a reason, and they were able to come away with the 5-point victory, 66-61, and a player that's really stepped up in the tournament, a player that everyone expected big things from coming into the year, was Remy Martin. He transferred in from Arizona State, one of the all-time leading scorers there, and has really, carried the offensive load for Kansas in the tournament, and he showed it again. He had around 18, 20 points. So Kansas goes into the Elite Eight. But next up, we have our 11 versus 10 matchup. Those are always fun. Iowa State versus Miami. Miami won by 14, 70-56. What do you think?
This one was really no surprise to me. Miami, who was obviously in the ACC, overcame a lot early on this year, and then that was able to build on their run. Iowa State is the middle of the pack, maybe even bottom of the pack. Big Ten team. I'm not really keen on their brand of basketball, but Miami was able to get the ACC job done.
And yeah, like you said, Iowa State, they kind of, I don't think were all that good, only an 11 seed, but they kind of just got hot at times this season, got hot at the right time. And, they were a team picked to finish last in the Big 12, and they were 2-18 last year, 0-14 or so in the Big 12. And what TJ Otzelberger did in his first year with the team is tremendous. Steve Prohm kind of left that team as a dumpster fire, and, not much hope in Ames for the Iowa State team, but Iowa State was able to, rally together a couple big wins this season and make the tournament and, go dancing into the Sweet 16. But Miami, a team that, beat Duke earlier this season, so they're obviously have shown that they were legit and were able to beat Iowa State, go into the Elite Eight. And a game that, shows that Kansas won by 26, but definitely was by disguise. Miami was actually winning 34-29 at halftime and was up on Kansas, but Kansas kind of put that aside and went on a huge run in the second half and was able to win by 26, 76-50 over Miami. Kansas into the Final Four. What do you think?
Yeah, Miami just they kept it close. They, like you say, they were up, but it just kind of got away from them in the last 8 or so minutes. With Kansas's athleticism and balance, I just think in the end, they were just way too much for Miami. And Miami is probably, just below the other 2 ACCs that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But Kansas is just too much.
Yeah, and Kansas was obviously the better team. They just have more talent, more star power, really everything. They have more. But, though I am a big fan of Jim Larinaga, I think he's done a great job. He's in his 10th season or so at Miami. But Bill Self, they have a better coaching staff. Bill Self is a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. And Kansas, showed that they're 1 seed, why they're 1 seed. The only 1 seed in the Final Four. And the only 1 seed to make the Elite Eight. So Kansas has shown, they're the real deal, despite people doubting them. And, they head into the Final Four, heading down to New Orleans. But, without further ado, we're going to jump into the Final Four down in New Orleans. And, the Final Four is always a great deal of fun. But our first matchup, we have the Battle of Tobacco Road, the trilogy. Each team has one apiece. So it's the rubber match between the two. Number 2, Duke, versus number 8, North Carolina.
This one's going to be fun. I'm not I am a Duke guy, so I am obviously just bias-wise, I am going with Duke in this one. And they owe them a little bit after the Coach K night, the beating of them. They kind of blew them out of the water, but sometimes that happens on those kinds of nights. But I think Duke is going to be the better team. I think they got their bigs going a little bit better than they were at that point in time. I think, Duke in a barn burner, but I think, 5 to 6. I like 78, 78, 67, something like that. But Duke I think will get into the final night.
And yeah, I'm with you. I like this game a lot. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. It has the prime time slot for a reason. And, I was just thinking, how crazy would it be if North Carolina won on Coach K night at Cameron Indoor and then ended Coach K's career? That would just be crazy, in my opinion. But, we'll have to see what happens on Saturday night. But I'm going to go Duke in this one as well. I think, Duke is the better team. I just think North Carolina kind of took the momentum of Coach K night and said, they're having Coach K night against us. Why don't we beat them? And, I think, both teams have terrific big men. But I do think this game is going to be won in the backcourt. It's going to go based off, which guards can play better, obviously. And like I said, Caleb Love and R.J. Davis have really stepped up big time for North Carolina. They had question marks about them earlier in the season about their ability to score, about, how much you can rely on big men and Brady Manick and Armando Bacot. But what they've done in the tournament for North Carolina has been terrific. And same deal for Duke. They have Trevor Keels, Jeremy Roach, and, it'll be interesting to see if, they can keep doing what they do. Two guys who played in high school together, so their chemistry is obviously there. So, they have shown they know how to play together on the court because Trevor Keels only a freshman, Roach is a sophomore. So their first year playing at the collegiate level together, but it's really, like I said, going to be one in the backcourt, which guards can, heat up and play better. So I'm going to go Duke 84 to 79, so in a close one. And we got Villanova, Kansas. Like you said, two teams that are easily, one of, if not the best, most well-coached teams in the country. Two teams, I feel like we always see them in the Final Four. But Villanova versus Kansas in the second Final Four matchup.
In that top 5, they are two of the most elite guys that you probably will ever see coach this game. I think that it's going to be a barn burner. I think Villanova plays a matchup zone that, keeps teams from scoring. So I do think this one will be low scoring. I think it will be somewhere in the 50s. I like, 56, 54, 58, 55, something in that range. But, with late game situations, those things change, and if you can outcoach each other, then that's how it's going to go. But I think coaching is going to come down to whoever wins this game.
Yeah, and I'm with you on this one. I think this is going to be a great game. They have the early game, but, any given year, I think either of these games will be the primetime game because it's the Battle of Tobacco Road, they're going to be the early game. But I like Kansas in this one. Like I said, their star point guard and leading scorer, Justin Moore, is out for the year. He tore his Achilles in the Elite Eight matchup. So I just think Kansas is going to have too much, with Villanova not having more. And I think Kansas is going to win this one in a close one. I think Villanova's defense and, their experience and knowing how to play there. They have guys that have been in the situation before, like Colin Gillespie, Brandon Slater, Jermaine Samuels. So I think, it's going to be a close one. I'm going to go Kansas by 4, maybe 60 to 56. And then our final matchup, both of us have Duke, and you had Villanova, correct?
I do.
So I have Duke versus Kansas. You have Duke versus Villanova. What do you think?
Again, if it comes down to Duke Villanova, it's probably the two best coaches in the country. It's probably 1, 2, 3, somewhere in that range. I know I keep shorting that number up a little bit on I think, those two coaches are just fantastic, and I think, in the end, I think Duke is going to have too much size for Villanova, especially with their big guard being out. I like Duke, and in this one, I think they're going to go up and down a little bit. 86-84, Duke.
And I'm with you on this one. I have Duke, Kansas, but no matter who wins the Villanova-Kansas matchup, we're going to have a Hall of Fame coach in the national championship. So I'm going to go with Kansas over Duke. It's not often you see a 1 seed win it all, but I just really like this Kansas team. I think they have what it takes to win in March, and it seems like Bill Self's teams always have what it takes to win in March. Kansas hasn't won a title since 2008, so they're going to end kind of their drought of being a blue blood. It's not often we see a blue blood go 14 years or so, 15 years without winning it all. But I'm going to go Kansas. I think, they have the star power to limit Duke offensively, but also compete with Duke on the offensive end of the floor. They have an All-American, Okai Abaji. They have David McCormick, who can really, go throw around. I wouldn't say throw around Mark Williams, because it's not often you can match up with Mark Williams size-wise. But I think I'm going to go Duke in a close one. I'm going to go 74-71. But without further ado, that wraps up our March Madness bracket and our March Madness coverage. Make sure to tune in to our next episode of the Madden Report, and always hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and without a doubt, it's been a pleasure to cover March Madness. But this is only the beginning of the Madden Report, and we're out of here.